Hello, everybody. Movie reviewer next door here, and doing my second review of the day. And this is for From Russia with Love, the second film in the Bond series. This film is from 1963, also directed by Terrence Young, just like the first, starring Sean Connery, Daniela Bianchi, Pedro Armendariz, Latte Lenya, and Robert Shaw. Now, for these, it's kind of hard to explain them myself because I'm mumble mouth, but I'll just read out the summary. Agent 007 is back in the second installment of the James Bond series, this time battling a secret crime organization known as Spectre. Russians Rosa, Klebb, and Kronstein are out to snatch a decoding device known as the Lecter, using the ravishing Tatiana to lure Bond into helping them. Bond willingly travels to meet Tatiana in Istanbul, where he must rely on his wits to escape with his life in a series of deadly encounters with the enemy. That's an alright description, I guess. So what did I think of this film? I think this is quite a bit better than the first. Now, I don't hate the first. Again, just before I get hate on the first one, because I know it's one of those things like, oh, the old Bond movies are the best, and the new Bond movies suck, which I thought Casino Royale, the first time I saw it, it didn't really stick in my mind. I thought it was just kind of a random... It felt more like a random action movie with the Bond name on it. But this film, I think, improves on pretty much every aspect that the first film lacked. The action, the acting, the sets, the editing even. The location, I think, is more interesting. Just everything, pacing especially, because there are parts of the first film that I do think drag a bit, especially on the island. As soon as you are like in the base at the end of the movie, I think the film is like smooth sailing, but I feel they spend way too much time trying to get to the island and like on the island just like dicking around. But this film like gets into it. And again, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. And if the second half of the film was how the entire film felt, like the pacing of the second half, this would be an easy 10 out of 10. Because I do think the first half of this film is a bit... But, like, not so slow that it's boring. I don't find the first half of this film boring. I just think it could have used a bit of picking up the pace. Even though last time I did this, the highest rated Sean Connery one was Thunderball, and that's a 2 hour and 10-minute movie, so almost 20 minutes longer than this one. But I just felt like that film did a lot more, and the ending was a lot more exciting. But this film, let me get to the actors. Sean Connery as James Bond, yet again. I think he does a good job in this film. Even though he's not my best choice for Bond, I think Roger Moore is the best. I know that that's a controversial opinion, I guess. I don't know. There are people who've said Daniel Craig is the best. I can only... I'll like, more power to you. I completely disagree. I think he is easily the worst Bond. And even George Lazenby, like, I know there are people that shit on George Lazenby and how he got the role and all that. I feel like he had a lot more charisma. And it also helps that he was in one of the better Bond films. Yeah, it's up there. I'm pretty sure I gave it a 9 the last time I saw it. But yeah, Sean Connery does a good job in this film. I think he's getting the hang of playing Bond. I do think this is one of the best performances of his in the series. Daniela Bianchi, or Bianchi, something like that, as Tatiana Romanova. Apparently she was a model, and this is one of those like, oh, let's put a model in a film. She was in other movies, but this is the first film where she had kind of a starring role. She's okay. I think she's dubbed too. I'm not sure if she is. She does have issues with emotions at times. There are times where she's okay, but yeah, she works. Pedro Armendariz, he's like my favorite character in this film. I love him as Ali Kerim Bey. He feels like he's got such a friendly presence, and I just really enjoy all of his scenes with Bond because you feel like they're actual friends. Like you actually feel like the friendly repartee that they have together. And, but yeah, like I'd love a spin-off about him. That would be great. Lotte Lenya as Rosa Klebb. She is the main villain. She works for Spectre. I liked her as a villain more than Dr. No, for sure. Because you can tell that she's one of those villains that, like, I know probably with this whole Me Too movement and shit, like oh, movies hate on gay people. Yes, she is a lesbian character. No, they don't really make it a big deal. It's just the one scene where she has Tatiana in the room and she's like subtly coming onto her and like using her in that way, and I think they did this character in the right way. Like having like a lesbian villain. I think that they did it in the right way where they didn't make that a big idea or big deal with her. They made it as subtle as they could, especially for the time, to let people know, oh yeah, she's a lesbian. But they didn't like throw it in your face. Like you could tell it from like context clues and shit. But yeah, I think she did a good job. Apparently she was a singer, and she died in 81, which sucks, because I did like her. I mean, she was born in 1898. Yeah, she lived quite a while. Okay, I got confused. She was quite getting up there, but when this film came out, in her 60s. But yeah, I thought she did a good job. And Robert Shaw as Red Grant, he's the henchman that Spectre sends after Bond, or Rosa Klebb sends after Bond. If anyone sees the film and recognizes him, they probably recognize him from Jaws. He was the fisherman that goes along with them, saying that he knows how to fight him, and then he gets eaten. Spoilers, whatever. It's a old ass movie. It's not really a spoiler, but he's good. I thought he was imposing. I liked the lack of dialogue. I thought the lack of dialogue for him created this air of mystery about him that was really nice. But yeah, this film, yeah, the Bond is and things. The title sequence, much improved from the first film. Instead of a bunch of red colored dots, it is instead the credits. Like the credits are projected onto these women who are belly dancing, which, when I say it, it sounds stupid, but if you watch it on YouTube, it looks pretty cool, I think. Because it'll be like, they'll like literally like put it on their bodies, and then they'll start doing like a dance, and it's cool looking. It's an interesting way of doing credits without having to like blow the budget on a bunch of animation or anything like that. Because there were like animated credits back then, and people like Saul Bass, who tried to make interesting credit sequences, like with Repulsion and what was the other one? Vertigo, Psycho, even with the lines, the da 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 da. Like, it was really nice to see something like that. Oh yeah, Thomas Crown Affair. That's one that I love. I forgot who did the Thomas Crown Affair credits. I'd love to review that film for this channel sometime. I love that movie. I know a lot of people will say the remake is better, but whatever. But yeah, I really like this title sequence. There's the music used during it is from Rush with Love, the instrumental, because they play a song by Matt Monro in the end credits, and part of it during the film, but not enough to hear him sing, which is a gorgeous song. He sounds like Frank Sinatra. I always thought this was Frank Sinatra before the last time I saw the film, and I found out, oh, the guy's name is Matt Monro. But yeah, beautiful song, beautiful opening credits. But yeah, I think this film just improves on pretty much everything that the first film did. The editing, there is still some sped up editing at points. There's a scene where a person wearing a Bond mask gets garroted, like piano wire wrapped around him, and they speed that up. I don't know really why they did that. It is kind of confusing. There's a scene where Bond pushes someone out of a boat, and they speed that up, and I don't really understand that. Like, I get it, film was expensive back then, and these films didn't have the hugest of budgets. This film had a $2 million budget, which back then was more money than you think. But still, I don't think it would have cost that much film to reshoot that one shot of him pushing him out of the boat. So it does feel kind of lazy at points. There are shots from outside of the train that look sped up. I don't know why they were. But yeah, like, other than that, the action is so much better. There's quite a few pretty impressive action scenes for back then. There's a fight scene between Bond and Red Grant in the train that's nice. There's I'd say the best set pieces at the Gypsy camp. There's a big shootout between Krylenko's men and Bond and Ali Kerembe. I'll just say Kerembe. And it's a lot of fun. It's well done, well shot. You can tell what's happening. It's exciting. It's actually exciting. And to say that a film from 1963 did an exciting action scene, that's awesome. That's awesome that it still holds up. I really don't think much of anything in Dr. No action-wise held up as well. But I do think this film holds up way better. But yeah, the music from John Barry is so much better now. It's so much better than Monty Norman's score from Dr. No, because Monty Norman's score was constantly blowing out my eardrums. The John Barry score is a lot nicer, and while John Barry's not my favorite composer for the series. I'll get into that whenever we get to the movies where it's not John Barry anymore, because I do think he has some of the Monty Norman thing going on, where at times the music does blow out the recording or whatever. The recording is not remastered in the greatest way, and I'm kind of mad at some of the mistakes made in these cuts of the films, because in Dr. No there were a couple scenes where there was clear the Blu-rays, by the way, it's these Blu-rays. There's a couple scenes where the film has like a digital messiness to it, and I was like, why the hell is that in there? Like, they should have been able to remaster that. There has to be a film print that has that fixed. But yeah, it happened once in this film. It didn't really happen much in the second film, as much as the first. But yeah, this film, the story is much more interesting with Rosa Klebb and Red Grant. I keep thinking of the guy from Mentalist, whatever. It was Red something. But yeah, like, I thought they were much more interesting villains than Dr. No and Joseph Wiseman. I thought this film definitely went along at a better pace, even though it's like 6 minutes longer. It's weird how that happens. Maybe it's the higher budget, I don't know. The back projection doesn't look as bad. There's a couple scenes with back projection that I thought actually like held up here. When Bond is in the car with Karen Bay's son driving, that doesn't look too bad. And the ending scene, I mean, it could look better, but for the time, it looks really good. And in the end, on the boat in Venice, looks good. Like, I really had no issues with how it looked. This film is just a market improvement. I know a lot of people consider this like the best Bond film. I don't agree with it being the best Bond film. I do think it's one of the better ones. I do think it is. But I do think there's still a long way to go. Like, to establish a formula, really put it into practice, and really just make it, what the Bond films came to be and what everybody loved about them. Because, again, a lot of people love this film. A lot of people think this is the best Bond film. This, Goldfinger, even License to Kill has come around with many people, and from being, it's just a R-rated action movie cut down to PG-13, to, no, this is an awesome Bond film. It's the most realistic. I don't really want realistic. I just want entertaining. And this film is a good mixture of realistic and entertaining that I actually want. That's most part of why I like the Roger Moore movies, because they don't have to be specifically super realistic. They can just be entertaining, because Roger Moore is a very jokey Bond, and he can pull off the lighter tone of his films. For these films, Sean Connery is a good choice for his films. Even though, like, I do think at times it's a bit too serious. And I understand, if it's not serious, it's not like Ian Fleming's Bond. I don't care what the books are. They're movies. They're meant to stand on their own. They're not meant to be exactly like the book, or even really as much of the book as they are. But yeah, I really, it's kind of hard to say what I want to say about these. But yeah, like, I think this is a good film. I think this is a great film. I think that, again, Sean Connery is good as Bond. I think the Bond girl's fine. I think the villains are great. And I even like Pedro Armendariz as Karen Bay, a confidant or a companion to Bond. I think it's very interesting in the films getting to see, like, who Bond works with and all that. I think that's an interesting addition. So, I guess I'll go to the pros and cons. Pros: Sean Connery as Bond. Of course, he's really good. Pedro Armendariz as Karen Bay. Daniela Bianchi, kinda. I think she's alright in the film. I don't think she's great. I don't think she's terrible. I think she's alright. The villains, played by Lotte Lenya and Robert Shaw, I think they do a great job. The action, again, the nice shootout at the gypsy camp. There's the like boat battles near the end, which was awesome. Some huge explosions, like gigantic explosions. What was it? Oh yeah, on the train. There was the fight on the train, the fight at the end, the very end of the movie. Very good pace to it, for the most part. Especially the second half. I think the second half is very well paced. The first half does take a bit to get going, which I understand. I can understand having to take a bit to get this film going. It's just what I think. I'm not saying that the film is bad for having this type of pace. I'm saying that more to what I enjoy in these types of movies. The score from John Barry in this film is good. There are small moments that I think are a bit but for the most part, it's a good score. The set design from Ken Adam, again, very well done. He will be missed. Yeah, the title sequence again. If I really have any cons, again, it would be the first half being a bit slow, or at least the first 40 minutes. The first 40 minutes of the film, I think, are a bit slow. Not super slow. Not that there's nothing interesting going on in them. I just think it could have used a bit of tightening with the pace, because these films feel like they need to be almost 2 hours long, which, I mean, the Craig movies, 4 of them are over 2 hours long, over 2 hours and 10 minutes long even. So I guess fuck me then. But and even though I think Daniela Bianchi is okay, I do think she could have been recast. Could have. She worked for the role that she was supposed to play. She wasn't really meant to be like a, badass female or whatever. It's not that I need a badass female in every film. I just think she could have done a bit more. But yeah. Other than that, yeah, the editing could still be fixed a bit. But yeah, I still think this is a good Bond film, a really good one, and I think it's one of the best of Sean Connery's tenure as Bond. And that's about all I got to say for this one. I think it's a great film, and I think it's a great Bond film. There you go. Comment down below, like, subscribe, whatever, and Movie Review Next Door, out.